Across time, humanity has lived through countless stories. Stories of choices, stories of struggle, stories that still teach us today. Every story carries a lesson. Faith can defeat impossible odds. In the ancient land of Israel, a shadow had fallen. For 7 long years, the people lived in terror, their spirits crushed under the heel of the mighty Midianites. Like a swarm of locusts, these desert raiders would sweep across the land at harvest time, leaving nothing but dust and despair in their wake. They stole the grain, scattered the livestock, and drove the Israelites to hide in caves and mountain strongholds. The fields lay barren, the winter presses were empty, and a prayer of desperation hung heavy in the air. In this climate of fear, we find a young man named Gideon. He wasn't a king, a general, or a hero. He was a farmer, the youngest son in the humblest family of his tribe. We see him now, not on an open field, but in secret, beating out wheat in a winepress to hide it from the watchful eyes of the Midianites. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound, sent a jolt of fear through him. He was a man defined by the anxieties of his time. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced the gloom of the winepress. An angel of the Lord appeared, his presence radiating an otherworldly peace. He looked at the startled young farmer and spoke words that seemed to defy reality. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon, covered in chaff and sweat, looked around. Mighty warrior? He saw only a frightened man trying to save a little grain. He replied with all the bitterness and doubt that filled his heart. "If the Lord is with us," he challenged, "why has all this happened? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about?" The angel's gaze did not waver. "Go in the strength you have," he commanded, "and save Israel from the hand of Midian. I am sending you." Gideon was stunned. Him? A man of no consequence, from the weakest clan. He was an unlikely savior, and he knew it. He pleaded for a sign, a confirmation that this divine calling was real. He prepared a meal, an offering of meat and bread. As he laid it upon a rock, the angel touched it with his staff. Fire erupted from the stone, consuming the offering in an instant, and then the angel vanished. Gideon fell to his knees, trembling, now certain he had stood in the presence of God. But even with this sign, doubt lingered in Gideon's heart like a stubborn weed. He needed more. That night, he laid a fleece of wool on the ground and prayed, "If you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, let there be dew only on the fleece, and let all the ground be dry." The next morning, he went to the fleece. The ground around it was bone dry, but when he wrung out the fleece, it was so saturated with dew that it filled a bowl with water. Still, a seed of uncertainty remained. He dared to ask again, reversing the test. This time, he prayed, "Let the fleece be dry, and let there be dew on all the ground." When dawn broke, he found the fleece perfectly dry, while the surrounding earth was damp with morning dew. The last of his doubts washed away. He was ready. Gideon sounded the call to arms, and a wave of hope surged through Israel. Men from every tribe flocked to his banner, their hearts stirred by the promise of freedom. An army of 32,000 gathered, a sea of determined faces ready to fight. But God's plan was different. He saw the pride in their hearts and knew that if they won, they would claim the victory for themselves. He told Gideon, "The people with you are too many. Announce to them, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back." Gideon obeyed, and a staggering 22,000 men walked away, their fear greater than their faith. Only 10,000 remained. Gideon looked at the 10,000, a respectable force, but still dwarfed by the Midianite horde. Surely, this was the army God would use. But God spoke again. "There are still too many people. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there." At the stream, Gideon watched as the men drank. The vast majority knelt down, burying their faces in the cool water, letting their guard down. But a small group, just 300 men, remained alert. They cupped the water in their hands and lapped it like a dog, their eyes constantly scanning the horizon, ever watchful for the enemy. God's voice was clear. With the 300 men who leapt, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. 300 men. Against an army so vast, it covered the valley floor like locusts in abundance. Their camels, without number, as the sand on the seashore. The odds were not just impossible, they were absurd. That night, to bolster Gideon's courage one last time, God sent him to spy on the enemy camp. Hidden in the shadows, Gideon overheard a Midianite soldier telling his friend about a dream of a loaf of barley bread tumbling into their camp and striking a tent, causing it to collapse. His friend interpreted the dream with terror in his voice. This can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands. Hearing this, Gideon's spirit soared. He knew God had already delivered the victory. He returned to his 300 men, his face resolute. He armed them not with swords and shields, but with the strangest of weapons, a trumpet in one hand and a clay jar with a torch hidden inside in the other. He divided them into 3 companies and positioned them around the sprawling, sleeping enemy camp. The night was dark and silent, the tension thick enough to taste. Gideon gave his final command. Watch me. When I reach the edge of the camp, do as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp, you blow yours and shout, for the Lord and for Gideon. At the designated hour, a signal was given. 300 trumpets shattered the midnight silence with a terrifying blast. 300 clay jars were smashed, the sound echoing like a shattering army. 300 torches suddenly blazed in the darkness, surrounding the camp with a ring of fire. The Midianites awoke to sheer chaos. Blinded by the lights, deafened by the trumpets, they saw enemies everywhere. In their panic and confusion, they drew their swords not on Gideon's men, but on each other. The camp erupted into a frenzy of self-destruction. As their army turned on itself and fled in a desperate, broken stampede, Gideon's tiny band of 300 stood and watched as God delivered the impossible victory. The land of Israel was free. The shadow of fear was lifted, and for 40 years, peace reigned. The story of Gideon and his 300 men became a legend, a timeless reminder that true strength doesn't come from numbers or weapons or military might. It comes from faith, courage, and trusting in a power far greater than our own. The smallest faith defeated the greatest fear. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more life lessons. Faith Story. More stories. More lessons.